In October 2020, the life of 23-year-old Maricela Botelho Valadez unexpectedly came to an end, becoming the center of a complex criminal case that shook Dallas and attracted attention across America. Maricela was a young woman full of life and energy. She loved to travel, meet new people, and enjoy life, as is typical of many her age. Dallas, where Maricela had come for the weekend, is known for its vibrant nightlife, especially in the Deep Ellum district. This historic area, located east of downtown, is famous for its bars, restaurants, and music venues. However, like many popular entertainment districts, Deep Ellum has a reputation as a place where fun can border on danger, especially for those unfamiliar with its peculiarities. Maricela arrived in Dallas in early October 2020 to spend a few days with her longtime friend and ex-boyfriend named Raul. Her visit was meant to be short. She planned to return to Seattle on October 5th. The weekend passed without incident, and nothing foreshadowed the tragedy that would soon unfold. On Sunday evening, October 4th, Maricela decided to visit the Deep Ellum area on her own. Raul, as it later turned out, had drunk too much and fallen asleep in front of his apartment door, losing his keys. Maricela, not wanting to wait on the street, ordered a taxi and headed to the center of Dallas nightlife. This decision, made spontaneously, proved fatal. Maricela, who was unfamiliar with the area and had no other friends in the city, found herself alone in a district known for its unpredictability after dark. In the early hours of October 5th, 2020, surveillance cameras captured the last known footage of Maricela. At approximately 1:15 a.m., she was seen leaving the Select Start bar in the Deep Ellum area. The video shows Maricela walking in the company of an unknown man. This man was later identified as 31-year-old Charles Beltran. Charles, who worked as a security guard at one of the Deep Ellum clubs, met Maricela that evening. According to the investigation, they quickly found common ground. Cameras captured the pair heading towards a black 2014 Audi A3 belonging to Beltran. Maricela got into the car voluntarily, which initially did not raise suspicions among investigators. Maricela was last seen alive on surveillance cameras at a 7-Eleven store at 1:28 a.m. The footage shows her entering the store with Beltran, smiling, heading to the refrigerators, and selecting a drink. This scene became the last confirmation that Maricela was conscious and acting of her own free will. On October 5th, Maricela was supposed to return to Seattle. However, when her flight began boarding, the girl did not appear at the airport. Her name was called repeatedly over the terminal's loudspeakers, but Maricela never arrived for boarding. The plane took off without her, leaving an empty seat that symbolically marked the beginning of her disappearance. In Washington, Maricela's parents and younger brother began to worry. To them, she was a loving daughter and sister, a cheerful and hardworking girl, of whom they were very proud. Initially, concern over the missed flight quickly turned into real fear. The family started calling Maricela, but her phone didn't answer. They contacted Raul, the friend she had been visiting in Dallas. Raul reported that Maricela hadn't returned to his apartment the previous night, and he didn't know where she might be. He told them about his unsuccessful night and how Maricela had gone to Deep Ellum alone. Worried relatives contacted the Dallas police, emphasizing that such behavior was completely out of character for Maricela. They were certain that their daughter would never voluntarily get into a car with a stranger outside a nightclub. This information initially led investigators to consider the possibility of kidnapping. The investigation into Maricela Botelho's disappearance soon led detectives to three key figures: Charles Beltran, Lisa Dykes, and Nina Morano. Each of them had their role in this tangled case. Charles Beltran, a 31-year-old man, worked as a security guard at a club in the Deep Ellum area. He already had a criminal record. He had served 2.5 years for armed robbery. Beltran was the last person seen with Maricela. Lisa Dykes, a 56-year-old woman, had a long career as a paralegal in court negotiations. She had been married 3 times and raised 3 children. Lisa rented a house on Kensington Drive where Beltran lived. Nina Morano, a 48-year-old woman from Pennsylvania, had recently been widowed after her husband died in a car accident. She had a legal education and, together with her late husband, managed several businesses. The relationships between these 3 individuals turned out to be complex and convoluted. According to acquaintances, Lisa Dykes had a romantic and financial relationship with Charles Beltran, despite the significant age difference. She bought him the Audi A3 car, registered a business in his name, and financed his music videos. Beltran called himself a rapper and dreamed of a music career. Nina Morano was also connected to this strange triangle. In February 2020, a few months after her husband's death, she founded a company called Empire Law Group. Interestingly, Lisa Dykes was listed as the company's director, and the registration address was in Florida. It later emerged that in February 2020, Lisa and Nina had married, despite Lisa continuing her relationship with Beltran. They even took the surname Beltran, officially becoming Lisa and Nina Beltran. Another strange aspect of their relationships was their fascination with the occult. In the house on Kensington Drive, investigators found Chatham altar with a statuette of Santa Muerte, the personification of death in Mexican folk Catholicism. This deity is known to be popular among criminal elements and those seeking protection outside the law. The investigation into Maricela Botello's disappearance began to gain momentum when detectives analyzed mobile phone data. Geolocation data showed that in the early hours of October 5th, the phones of Maricela, Charles, Lisa, and Nina were all located in the house on Kensington Drive. This became the first serious evidence that all 3 suspects were together with Maricela on the night of her disappearance. The next step was the discovery of Charles Beltran's car. The black 2014 Audi A3 was found in New York. Forensic examination revealed hair samples in the car's trunk, which were later identified as belonging to Maricela. On October 14th, 10 days after Maricela's disappearance, police obtained a warrant to search the house on Kensington Drive. What they found there was shocking. The house looked as if its occupants had hastily packed their belongings and fled. Closets were open, trash was scattered on the floor and countertops. A mattress stood in the hallway, leaning against the wall. The most disturbing find was a section of carpet in the guest bedroom where Beltran lived. It was noticeable that the carpet had been recently thoroughly cleaned, but reddish-brown stains were still visible underneath. Forensic experts applied a special reagent that gives a positive reaction to the presence of blood. The result was positive, and further analysis confirmed that the blood belonged to Maricela Botello. When the police began their investigation, all 3 suspects suddenly disappeared. Charles Beltran was the first to go underground. Interestingly, he continued to update his social media, posting photos from various locations, and even shot a mini music video. Investigators assumed this could have been an attempt to throw them off track. Lisa Dykes and Nina Morano also suddenly vanished. They quit their jobs and seemed to have vanished into thin air. Their escape only intensified the investigators' suspicions. Phone records of Lisa and Nina showed that on the night after Maricela's disappearance, they drove to a wooded area south of Dallas, near the town of Hutchins. This area was not far from the house Lisa had rented for 4 years before moving to Kensington Drive. This information became crucial for the further development of the case. On March 24th, 2021, almost 6 months after Maricela's disappearance, a breakthrough moment occurred in the investigation. A woman walking her dog in a wooded area near Wilmer, Texas, about 15 miles from Dallas, stumbled upon human remains. The location of the find corresponded to the area where Lisa and Nina's mobile phone signals had previously been recorded. Police immediately cordoned off the area and began a thorough examination of the site. Forensic examination confirmed the worst fears. The remains found belonged to Maricela Botelho Valadez. Due to the long time that had passed since death and environmental influences, the exact cause of death could not be determined. The news of the discovery of Maricela's body shook the communities of Dallas and Seattle. The girl's family, who had lived in uncertainty and hope for months, now faced the cruel reality. Their worst fears were confirmed, and now they demanded justice for their daughter and sister. The discovery of Maricela's remains took the investigation to a new level. The case now officially became a murder investigation, and the search for the 3 suspects took on even greater urgency. After the discovery of Maricela's body, law enforcement intensified their efforts to find the suspects. Their persistence soon bore fruit. On March 25, 2021, just a day after Maricela's remains were discovered, police arrested Nina Morano in Miami, Florida. It turned out that she and Lisa Dykes had rented a house in the area. However, at the time of Nina's arrest, Lisa had managed to disappear again. 2 days later, on March 27th, Lisa Dykes was found in Orange County in northern Florida. Her arrest took place while she was on the phone with her lawyer, apparently trying to find a way to avoid justice. Charles Beltran remained the only suspect still at large. However, he too was eventually found. Beltran was arrested in a suburb of Salt Lake City called West Jordan, Utah. He was hiding with the family of his ex-girlfriend, who was also the mother of one of his children. The arrest of all 3 suspects was a significant breakthrough in the case. Now, investigators could focus on establishing the exact sequence of events that led to Maricela's death and the role of each suspect in this crime. After the arrest of all 3 suspects, a complex trial process began. In May 2021, Lisa Dykes and Nina Morano were returned to Texas. Each of them posted a $500,000 bail and was released under house arrest with GPS bracelets. They were charged with murder and tampering with evidence. However, this situation didn't last long. In the early hours of Christmas 2021, at about 7:30 a.m., both women disconnected their GPS bracelets within 4 minutes of each other. Taking advantage of the holiday bustle and limited resources of the Dallas Pretrial Supervision Department, Lisa and Nina managed to escape and remain undetected for 2 days. It wasn't until December 27th that the Pretrial Supervision Service discovered that the bracelets had been disconnected. By that time, the women had already covered a significant distance. They purchased tickets in their own names to Seoul, South Korea, and from there to Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. Cambodian immigration services confirmed that the pair had entered the country and had not left its borders. Lisa and Nina's escape led to an international operation to find them. The FBI coordinated its actions with Cambodian authorities and the country's largest bank. Agents managed to track cash withdrawals made by the women. Surveillance cameras at one of the ATMs captured the license plate of the car that brought them to the cash withdrawal location. Local police found the taxi and questioned the driver, who indicated the address where the 2 foreigners were staying. In the coastal city of Sihanoukville, Lisa and Nina Beltran were detained again. In February 2022, they were extradited back to Texas. This time they were held in custody without the possibility of bail. Judge Amber Givens set a new bail amount of $4 million for each, effectively making their release before trial impossible. Court dates for both women were set for 2023. Both pleaded not guilty to Maricella's murder. Charles Beltran, unlike Lisa and Nina, remained in custody from the moment of his arrest. He did not receive financial support from his former companions to post bail. Preparation for the trial proved to be complex and full of surprises. At the beginning of the case, the prosecution presented over 300 audio recordings, photographs, and videos that were previously unavailable to either the prosecution or the defense. This led to an immediate suspension of the court session, as both sides needed time to familiarize themselves with the new evidence. The situation became more complicated in March 2023, when the prosecution filed a motion to recuse Judge Amber Givens. They claimed that the judge had shown bias towards the state prosecutor. Judge Givens denied the accusations of bias, explaining her behavior as frustration that the police had presented evidence that was previously unavailable, which delayed the process. Eventually, Judge Givens was removed from the case. Moreover, she was removed from hearing about 100 other cases after hearings revealed that she had acted with bias. These complications led to further delays in the consideration of Marcella Botelho's case. During the preparation for the trial, the investigation tried to establish the motives for Marcella's murder. Several theories emerged that attempted to explain why the young woman became a victim of such a brutal crime. One of the main versions was based on jealousy. According to acquaintances, Lisa Dykes was obsessed with Charles Beltran, despite the significant age difference. Perhaps the appearance of the young and attractive Maricela triggered a fit of jealousy in her. Another theory concerned financial motives. Lisa had invested significant funds in Charles's music career, and possibly the emergence of a new relationship threatened her investments. Another aspect that attracted investigators' attention was the suspect's fascination with occult practices, particularly the worship of Santa Muerte. Although no direct link between this cult and the murder was established, this detail added a creepy tinge to the case. However, without specific testimonies from the participants in the events, establishing the true motives remained a difficult task. The investigation considered all possible scenarios, trying to reconstruct the events of that fatal night. Before the trial began, it became known that Charles Beltran had decided to cooperate with the prosecution. He agreed to testify in exchange for reduced charges against him. The version of events he presented became a key element of the prosecution. According to Beltran, on the night of Marcella's disappearance, he brought her to the house where he lived with Lisa and Nina. He and Marcella had been drinking, and under the influence of alcohol, they went to sleep in his room. Charles claimed that he woke up to Maricella's screams and saw Lisa Dykes, overcome with jealousy, attacking the girl with a knife. Beltran said he tried to stop Lisa, but it was too late. According to him, Nina Morano entered the room after the attack. Realizing what had happened, Charles panicked and fled the house, leaving Lisa and Nina to deal with the consequences. Geolocation data from Beltran's mobile phone corroborated his story about leaving the house early in the morning and going to his ex-girlfriend's place. The next day, he even had an oil change done on his car, which was documented. Lisa Dykes' defense chose a strategy of denying any romantic relationship with Charles Beltran. They insisted that Lisa was merely an investor in Charles's music career and had no motive to kill Maricela out of jealousy. Lisa personally testified in court, stating that on the night of Maricela's disappearance, she was in a state of recovery from a failed plastic surgery on her thighs, which caused severe pain. According to her, she could barely walk or drive a car during that period. The defense also tried to discredit Charles Beltran's testimony, calling him an unreliable witness with a criminal past who was trying to avoid responsibility by shifting blame onto others. Nina Morano and her lawyers followed a similar line of defense, claiming that she was not present during the murder and learned about it later. They insisted that her only guilt was in helping to conceal the crime under the pressure of circumstances. Both women denied their involvement in Maricella's murder, trying to present their escape as a result of panic and fear, rather than an admission of guilt. The case of Maricela Botelho had a significant impact on the Dallas community, especially the Deep Ellum area. This place, known for its vibrant nightlife, underwent substantial changes after the tragedy. Local residents and business owners were shocked that such a brutal event could occur in their neighborhood. Many began to rethink security issues in Deep Ellum, especially at night. Bar and club owners strengthened security measures, increasing the number of guards and installing additional surveillance cameras. City authorities also responded to the situation, increasing police patrols in the area and introducing new rules for nightlife establishments. Community meetings were organized to discuss ways to improve safety for Deep Ellum visitors. Maricella's tragedy became the impetus for creating a number of initiatives aimed at raising awareness about personal safety, especially among young people. Volunteer groups began conducting information campaigns, teaching people the basics of self-defense and rules for safe behavior in nightclubs. While the trial continued, Maricela Botelho's family and the public waited for justice. This case caused widespread resonance, raising important questions about the justice system and citizen safety. Maricela's parents and brother repeatedly appeared in the media, calling for fair punishment of the guilty. They spoke of Maricela as a bright, kind girl whose life was unfairly cut short. Their pain and desire for justice resonated in the hearts of many people. The case also sparked discussions about the effectiveness of the pre-trial supervision system. The fact that Lisa Dykes and Nina Morano were able to escape while under house arrest drew criticism towards law enforcement agencies and the judicial system. The public closely followed the developments, expecting that the verdict in this case would not only be a punishment for the guilty, but also a signal that such crimes do not go unpunished. The case of Maricela Botelho revealed a number of problems in the justice system and public safety that required immediate resolution. Analysis of this tragedy allowed for important conclusions to be drawn to prevent similar cases in the future. One of the key lessons was the need to improve the pre-trial supervision system. The escape of Lisa Dykes and Nina Morano during house arrest demonstrated the vulnerability of existing control mechanisms. This led to a review of protocols for monitoring suspects released on bail and strengthening security measures. Another important aspect concerned personal safety issues, especially in the city's entertainment districts. Maricela's tragedy underscored the importance of caution when meeting strangers and visiting unfamiliar places. This prompted the creation of educational programs aimed at raising youth awareness about potential risks and ways to avoid them. The investigation also revealed shortcomings in coordination between various law enforcement agencies, delays in exchanging information and resources between local police, the FBI, and international partners during the search for the fugitives became the subject of serious analysis and subsequent reforms. The case drew attention to the problem of domestic violence and toxic relationships. The story of Lisa Dykes and her obsession with a younger man became a reason to discuss issues of mental health and the importance of timely detection of problematic relationships. At the time of completing this review, the trial in the case of Maricela Botelho was still ongoing. Charles Beltran, Lisa Dykes, and Nina Morano were awaiting final sentencing. The public and Maricela's family continued to follow the developments, hoping for a just conclusion to this tragic story. The memory of Maricela Botelho remained alive in the hearts of her loved ones and all those touched by this story. Her tragic fate became a symbol of the need for greater vigilance and responsibility in society. This case forced many to reflect on the dark sides of human nature, but also demonstrated the strength of the community in its pursuit of justice. It reminded us of the importance of valuing life and being attentive to those around us. Despite all the tragic circumstances, the story of Maricela Botelho became a catalyst for positive changes in society, prompting improvements in security and justice systems. Her short life left a deep mark, changing approaches to solving problems of safety and justice in modern society.
On September 22, 2020, around 1:30 in the morning, the silence of the small town of Laredo, Texas, was shattered by the sirens of police cars and ambulances. They were heading to a house on Canyon Oak Drive, where a tragedy was unfolding that would forever change the life of one family and shake the entire local community. The story of Maria Munoz and Joel Payot began in the early 2000s in Puerto Rico. Maria, a young and ambitious nursing student, met Joel, who was 11 years her senior and also studying in the medical field. Despite the age difference, there was instant chemistry between them. They were united by a shared passion for medicine and a desire to help people. Maria was known among friends for her sincerity, kindness, and dedication to family. After her mother's death, she took on the responsibility of caring for her younger siblings, demonstrating her nurturing nature. Joel, for his part, gave the impression of an ambitious and determined man who sought to achieve success in his career. Their relationship developed quickly, and by 2011, the couple married, uniting their lives and dreams for the future. For Maria, this was a step into a new life, full of hopes for a happy family and a successful career alongside her beloved husband. A few years after their marriage, Maria and Joel's lives underwent radical changes. Joel received an attractive job offer in Laredo, Texas, as a certified registered nurse anesthetist, CRNA. This opportunity promised a significant salary increase and career growth. The decision to move was not easy for the couple, especially for Maria. She had to leave her family, friends, and career in Puerto Rico. However, supporting her husband's dreams, Maria agreed to this step. Laredo, a city with a population of about 260,000 residents, became their new home. It offered a favorable environment for a young family, numerous parks, lakes, and good schools. However, like any city, it had its problems, including a higher-than-average rate of property crime. Adapting to the new life proved challenging for Maria. She temporarily put her nursing career on hold, focusing on setting up their new home and supporting Joel in his work. Despite the difficulties, Maria remained optimistic, hoping that this new chapter would bring happiness and prosperity to their family. Soon after moving to Texas, the Payot family welcomed their firstborn, a son named Alejandro. The birth of the child brought new light into the couple's life. Maria fully devoted herself to the role of mother, finding joy in the daily care of her son. Joel, meanwhile, was achieving success in his career. His work as a CRNA not only provided financial security for the family, but also allowed Maria to stay at home with the child. It seemed that life was perfect for the young family. In 2018, their second son, Valentino, was born. Maria was happy to be the mother of two boys. She spent a lot of time playing with the children, taking them for walks in the park, and reading to them before bedtime. The walls of their house were decorated with children's drawings, and toys were scattered throughout all the rooms, creating an atmosphere of a warm family nest. Maria planned to return to work when the children started school. She began preparing for the exams necessary to renew her nursing license in Texas, aspiring to combine motherhood with professional fulfillment. Around 2018, shortly after Valentino's birth, friends and colleagues began to notice changes in Joel's behavior and appearance. He quickly lost weight and then started to gain muscle mass, raising suspicions about possible steroid use. The changes were not limited to physical appearance. Joel became more self-confident, often boasting about his high earnings and expensive purchases. He bought a sports car for himself and a new car for Maria, constantly emphasizing his financial success. Joel's social media also underwent changes. Previously filled with family photos, his profiles now abounded with selfies showcasing his new physical form. Photos of Maria and the children gradually disappeared from his pages. During this period, Joel met Janet Arredondo, a surgical nurse at the hospital where he worked. Their communication quickly developed into something more, although initially it was not noticeable to others. Maria, busy caring for young children, initially did not notice these changes. However, she gradually began to feel that something was wrong in their relationship. Joel became more distant, often staying late at work and spending less time with the family. Maria's suspicions about her husband's infidelity were confirmed when she accidentally found plane tickets for Joel's trip to Europe. The tickets were in the names of Joel and Janet, which was a painful discovery for Maria about the reality of their marriage. According to friends' testimonies, Joel took Janet on a luxurious trip across Europe, visiting Spain, France, and Greece. This trip took place while Maria remained at home with young children, including newborn Valentino. The revelation of the affair became a turning point in Maria's life. She faced the reality that her husband was leading a double life, maintaining a relationship with another woman for an extended period. This discovery inflicted deep emotional trauma on Maria, shaking her faith in the strength of their marriage and shared future. After the revelation of Joel's infidelity, Maria found herself in a complex emotional situation. Despite the pain and disappointment, she decided to fight for her marriage, guided by love for her children and hope for relationship restoration. Joel, realizing that his double life had been exposed, tried to make amends. He organized a luxurious trip for Maria to Las Vegas, accompanying it with expensive gifts, including Louis Vuitton bags. This trip briefly created an illusion of reconciliation and the possibility of a new beginning for the couple. However, despite outward signs of repentance, Joel did not end his relationship with Janet. He continued to lead a double life, balancing between family and mistress. This situation led to the onset of deep depression in Maria. Maria began taking antidepressants, trying to cope with emotional pain. She also turned to religion, seeking solace in prayers and church attendance. During this period, Maria started keeping a diary where she candidly wrote about her feelings and experiences. The last months of Maria's life were filled with internal struggle and emotional suffering. Her diaries, later found by investigators, reveal the depth of her experiences and hopes for the future. In one entry, Maria wrote, "My fears are losing family, losing my husband, harming the children, making the wrong choice." These lines testify to her constant anxiety and desire to preserve the family, despite difficult circumstances. Despite depression, Maria did not lose hope for a better future. She wrote about the desire to be a good mother, present and involved in her children's lives. Her diaries were filled with prayers and appeals to God for help and guidance. During this period, Maria also began planning her professional future. She was preparing for exams to renew her nursing license in Texas, hoping to return to work when the children started school. These plans indicated her desire to move forward, despite difficulties in her personal life. On the night of September 22, 2020, Maria Munoz's life tragically ended. The events of this night became the central point of subsequent investigation and trial. A few days before this date, on Saturday, a conflict occurred between Maria and Joel. Maria, driving past Janet's house, noticed her husband's car there. She stopped and approached the door, demanding Joel make a final choice between her and Janet. According to testimonies, Joel chose Janet, but still left with Maria. During this confrontation, Joel, according to witnesses, hit the windshield of the car, breaking it. On Monday evening, Joel and Maria agreed to meet for a serious conversation. Maria sent a message to a friend, asking her to pray for her before this important talk. This was the last message Maria sent to her friends. Around 1:30 in the morning on September 22nd, Joel Peyote called 911. The recording of this call became important evidence in the case. "Mary Neal, what's the emergency address?" "Come on. I'll call my wife. I'll call my parents. She's not breathing. I have to take him to the pills." "Okay, what's your address?" Joel informed the operator that his wife wasn't breathing and that he thought she might have taken some pills. He tried to perform CPR as instructed by the operator, but unsuccessfully. The first police officer arrived at the scene a few minutes after the call. His body camera recorded key moments of the initial investigation. When the officer entered the house, he saw Joel in surgical attire performing CPR on Maria. The children, Alejandro and Valentino, were still asleep in their rooms, unaware of the tragedy unfolding. The officer noticed several suspicious details. Joel was excessively sweaty, which seemed odd given the light clothing and cool temperature in the house. Moreover, when the officer asked about the medications Maria might have taken, Joel brought a bottle of clonazepam that was prescribed in his name, not Maria's. While providing assistance to Maria, the officer set aside the medication bottle but later noticed it had disappeared. Upon reviewing the body camera footage, it became obvious that Joel had discreetly taken the bottle and hidden it in his pocket, raising additional suspicions. After the arrival of additional police units and paramedics, Joel was sent downstairs to allow the rescuers to work. Unfortunately, despite all efforts, Maria was pronounced dead at 3:58 in the morning. Detectives began the investigation, with the first step being Joel's interrogation. His behavior during the interrogation raised additional suspicions. He was excessively sweaty, nervous, and gave confused answers. When left alone in the interrogation room, he screamed, cried, and hit the walls, which was captured on camera. Joel said that he and Maria had been intimate, after which he went to shower. Upon returning, he found her unconscious. However, detectives noticed that the bathroom was completely dry, with no signs of recent use. Parallel to Joel's interrogation, the police conducted a search of the house. They found an intravenous needle on the stairs, as well as medical equipment for IVs and other syringes in a medical bag. These findings seemed strange, considering that Maria did not require such medications. An important piece of evidence was Maria's diary, found during the search. In it, she detailed her emotions, fears, and hopes. The entries testified to her deep love for her children and desire to preserve the family, despite difficulties in her relationship with Joel. A key moment in the investigation came when the toxicology report arrived 4 months after Maria's death. The results were shocking and completely refuted the version of clonazepam overdose that Joel initially put forward. 7 different drugs were found in Maria's blood: morphine, Demerol, Versed, propofol, ketamine, lidocaine, and Narcan. Importantly, clonazepam, which Maria allegedly took, was not detected in her system. Particular attention was drawn to the high level of propofol, a powerful anesthetic typically used in surgery. According to experts, the concentration of propofol in Maria's blood was one of the highest ever recorded, sufficient for conducting several serious operations. Most of the detected drugs are administered intravenously, which was consistent with the small injection mark found on Maria's arm during the autopsy. This detail became key in forming the version of intentional murder. The results of the toxicology report forced investigators to revise their strategy. They again turned to Janet Arredondo, Joel's mistress, for additional questioning. This time, faced with new evidence, Janet agreed to an immunity deal in exchange for testifying against Joel. Janet revealed that Joel regularly brought medical drugs from the hospital to her home, including propofol, morphine, and other narcotic substances. She confessed that they sometimes used these drugs together for recreational purposes. Moreover, Janet reported that the day after her first interrogation, Joel asked her to delete the surveillance camera recordings from her house for September 21st and 22nd. Joel's colleagues also provided important information. One of them, Luis, testified that Joel complained about a difficult situation in his marriage and expressed reluctance to divorce due to potential financial losses associated with alimony. When Luis directly asked Joel if he had killed Maria, he responded evasively, "I can't talk about that." Analysis of Maria's diaries revealed that a few days before her death, she was seriously considering the possibility of divorce. In one of her last entries, she wrote about wanting to move forward and start a new life. Based on the accumulated evidence, in January 2021, Joel Payot was arrested on charges of murdering Maria and tampering with evidence. His bail was set at $200,000. Joel's arrest came as a shock to many, especially Maria's family. Her sister, Marisol, until this moment believed that Maria might have committed suicide due to marital problems. She couldn't believe that Joel could be involved in her sister's death. After the arrest, Joel was released on bail and awaited trial, wearing an electronic tracking bracelet. This period lasted almost 2 years, during which the prosecution prepared the case against him. On March 20th, 2023, the trial of Joel Payot began. The prosecution assembled a team of 4 experienced lawyers who represented Maria's interests and those of the state. The prosecution presented to the court a version of events according to which Joel methodically planned Maria's murder. They argued that the motive for the crime was Joel's unwillingness to pay alimony and divide property in case of divorce. According to the prosecution's estimates, potential payments could reach $1 million. Prosecutors emphasized that Joel, having access to powerful medical drugs due to his profession, used them to kill his wife. They suggested that he might have added sedative drugs to Maria's drink, and then, when she lost consciousness, administered a lethal dose of propofol and other medications. Joel's defense, on the other hand, presented an alternative version of events. They claimed that both Maria and Joel abused narcotic substances, and that Maria's death was the result of an accidental overdose. According to the defense's version, Joel tried to save his wife by administering Narcan, a drug used to reverse the effects of opioids. Key evidence at the trial included the toxicology report, which revealed a lethal combination of drugs in Maria's body, Janet Arredondo's testimony that Joel brought medical drugs home, entries from Maria's diary demonstrating her psychological state and plans for the future, video footage from the police officer's body camera that captured Joel's behavior immediately after Maria's death, and testimony from Joel's colleagues about his financial motives and reluctance to divorce. This evidence formed a solid basis for the prosecution, demonstrating both Joel's motive and opportunity to commit the crime. After 8 days of court hearings, on March 30th, 2023, the jury went into deliberation. It took them less than an hour to reach a verdict. Joel Payot was found guilty of the intentional murder of Maria Munoz and tampering with evidence. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment for murder and an additional 10 years for evidence tampering. According to the sentence, Joel will be eligible for parole only in 2053. The verdict in Joel Payot's case put a legal end to Maria Munoz's tragic story, but its consequences continued to be felt. The fate of the children, Alejandro and Valentino, became a subject of particular concern. Although exact information about their current whereabouts is not disclosed, it can be assumed that they are under the care of Maria's relatives, possibly her sister Marisol. This case caused significant resonance in the medical community of Laredo and beyond. It raised important questions about abuse of official position in the medical field and access to dangerous drugs. Joel's colleagues who were present at the trial expressed shock at how a person they trusted with patients' lives could commit such a crime. The story of Maria and Joel also drew attention to the problem of domestic violence and emotional abuse in families that outwardly seem prosperous. Maria's diaries revealed the depth of her suffering and isolation, despite the outward appearance of a successful family. For Maria's friends and loved ones, the verdict became an opportunity for closure, but it did not ease the pain of loss. Yasmin Martinez, Maria's close friend, said in an interview after the trial, "Maria was an extraordinary person. She loved her children above all else and always dreamed of a happy family. We hope that this tragedy will make people more attentive to their loved ones and not afraid to ask for help." The case also raised questions about Janet Arredondo's role. Although she received immunity from prosecution in exchange for testimony, her involvement in the events leading to Maria's death raised ethical questions. After the trial, Janet disappeared from public view, and her subsequent fate remains unknown. The medical community of Laredo initiated a review of protocols for storing and accounting for potent drugs in hospitals to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Dr. John Hunsinger, Joel's former supervisor, became an active advocate for strengthening control over access to dangerous medications. This story also became a warning for those facing problems in marriage. It highlighted the importance of timely seeking professional help and support from loved ones in difficult life situations. For many Laredo residents, this tragedy served as a reminder that deep problems can hide behind the facade of a successful life. It encouraged people to be more attentive to their loved ones and not afraid to intervene if they suspect someone is suffering from violence or abuse. The memory of Maria Munoz lives on not only in the hearts of her children and loved ones, but also as a reminder of the importance of timely help and support for those suffering in silence. Her tragic story became a catalyst for important discussions about domestic violence, drug abuse in the medical profession, and the importance of mental health in modern society. The case of Maria Munoz and Joel Payot has had a lasting impact on the Laredo community and beyond. It has sparked conversations about the hidden struggles that can exist behind seemingly perfect facades and the importance of being vigilant and supportive of those around us. In the medical community, this case has led to increased scrutiny of drug handling procedures and access to powerful medications. Many hospitals and medical facilities have reviewed and tightened their protocols for tracking and dispensing controlled substances. The case has also prompted discussions about the mental health of medical professionals and the pressures they face in their high-stress careers. For law enforcement and the legal system, this case highlighted the importance of thorough investigation and the role of forensic evidence in solving complex crimes. The meticulous work of the detectives, forensic experts, and prosecutors in piecing together the evidence was crucial in bringing justice for Maria. In the broader social context, Maria's story has become a rallying point for domestic violence awareness campaigns. Local organizations in Laredo and surrounding areas have used this case to educate the public about the signs of emotional abuse and the resources available for those in abusive relationships. The fact that such a tragedy could occur in what appeared to be a successful, professional family has challenged many people's preconceptions about domestic violence. The fate of Maria and Joel's children, Alejandro and Valentino, remains a poignant reminder of the far-reaching consequences of domestic violence. While their current situation is not publicly known, child welfare experts have emphasized the importance of providing long-term support and counseling for children who have experienced such trauma. In the years following the trial, several books and documentaries have explored Maria's story, seeking to understand the complex dynamics that led to her tragic death. These works have not only examined the specifics of the case, but have also delved into broader issues of marital discord, the pressures of immigrant families trying to achieve the American dream, and the sometimes deadly consequences of infidelity and financial stress. The Laredo community has taken steps to honor Maria's memory. A local park has been renamed in her honor, serving as a place of reflection and a reminder of the importance of familial love and community support. Annual events are held on the anniversary of her death, bringing together domestic violence survivors, advocates, and community members to raise awareness and promote healing. In the medical field, the case has led to discussions about ethics and professional responsibility. Medical schools and continuing education programs have incorporated case studies based on this tragedy to teach future healthcare professionals about the dangers of drug abuse and the importance of maintaining ethical standards. For many who knew Maria, her legacy is one of love, resilience, and unfulfilled potential. Friends and family often speak of her warmth, her dedication to her children, and her dreams of returning to nursing. Her diary entries, which played such a crucial role in the investigation, have become a powerful testament to her inner strength and her struggle to maintain hope in the face of adversity. The case has also had ripple effects in the legal community. Prosecutors and defense attorneys alike have studied the strategies used in this trial, particularly how digital evidence, toxicology reports, and personal writings can be crucial in building or defending a case. The role of plea bargains and immunity deals, as seen with Janet Arredondo's testimony, has been a subject of much debate in legal circles. For the Puerto Rican community in Laredo and beyond, Maria's story has been particularly impactful. It has sparked discussions about the challenges faced by immigrants, the importance of maintaining cultural ties, and the need for community support systems, especially for those far from their extended families. In the years since the trial, Joel Payot's case has gone through the appeal process, with his defense team challenging various aspects of the conviction. However, as of the last update, the original verdict has been upheld, and Joel remains in prison, serving his life sentence. The aftermath of this case continues to unfold. Janet Arredondo, whose testimony was crucial in convicting Joel, has reportedly struggled with the consequences of her actions and her role in the events leading to Maria's death. While she avoided legal consequences due to her immunity deal, she has faced social ostracism and professional difficulties. Maria's sister, Marisol, has become an advocate for domestic violence awareness and prevention. She often speaks at events, sharing Maria's story and urging people to be more attuned to the warning signs of abusive relationships. Her efforts have helped many women in similar situations find the courage to seek help. The hospital where Joel worked has implemented stringent new protocols for monitoring the use and distribution of controlled substances. These measures have become a model for other healthcare facilities across the state, potentially preventing similar incidents in the future. As time passes, Maria Munoz's story continues to resonate with many. It serves as a somber reminder of the potential for tragedy hidden behind closed doors and the importance of community vigilance, support, and action. Her life, though cut tragically short, has become a catalyst for positive change, prompting important conversations and actions to prevent similar tragedies in the future. In Laredo and beyond, Maria is remembered not just for the circumstances of her death, but for the life she lived, a devoted mother, a caring nurse, and a woman who dreamed of a better future. Her story continues to inspire efforts to create safer homes, more supportive communities, and a society more attuned to the silent struggles of those around us.
The night of June 13, 2021 in Santiago, the capital of Chile, was unusually quiet. The city streets, typically lively even at late hours, seemed empty. Only occasional cars disturbed the peace, their headlights momentarily illuminating dark alleys before disappearing around corners. There was tension in the air. The recent murder of a young girl had shaken the city, and the police were actively searching for the perpetrator. Among those awake that night was 25-year-old Valeria Vivanco, an assistant inspector at the Metropolitan Homicide Investigation Bureau. She was preparing for her next shift, unaware that this night would become horrific for her. Valeria Vivanco was born on May 29, 1996, in Chile. She was the third child in the family of Miguel and Jacqueline Vivanco, where older children Daniela and Michelangelo were already growing up. The family lived modestly but decently. Her father worked for a transport company, providing the main income, while her mother took care of the household and raised the children. From early childhood, Valeria stood out among her peers. She grew up as a brave girl, always ready to help others. These character traits, which would later become defining in her professional life, manifested in everyday situations, whether it was protecting the weak at school or helping neighbors. In 2014, the Vivanco family went through a difficult period. Valeria's parents divorced. Despite the breakdown of the marriage, both parents maintained warm relationships with their children. They developed especially close relationships with their youngest daughter. Valeria became a kind of bridge between the separated parts of the family, maintaining connections between all its members. It was during this period that Valeria's desire to dedicate her life to serving the law and helping people finally took shape. Her determination and natural inclination towards justice became the foundation for choosing her future profession. After graduating from high school, Valeria Vivanco took a decisive step towards realizing her dream. She entered the Chilean Investigative Academy. This decision was a natural continuation of her pursuit of justice and desire to protect people. Studying at the academy proved to be a challenging test. Valeria faced strict discipline, intense physical training, and complex theoretical courses. However, her determination and natural abilities helped her not only to withstand this pressure but also to stand out among her classmates. Teachers quickly noticed the potential of the young student. Her analytical skills, attention to detail, and ability to work in a team made her one of the most promising cadets. Valeria showed a particular interest in criminology and forensic science, often staying after classes for additional research. In 2016, Valeria successfully graduated from the academy with honors. Her achievements did not go unnoticed, and soon she received an offer to join the prestigious Metropolitan Homicide Investigation Bureau. In 2017, with excellent theoretical training behind her, Valeria Vivanco began her professional career at the Metropolitan Homicide Investigation Bureau. The first months of work became a real test for her, as reality turned out to be much more complex than training cases. Despite initial difficulties, Valeria quickly adapted to the new environment. Her colleagues noted her tireless work ethic and willingness to take on the most challenging cases. She never refused night shifts or working on weekends, understanding that crime doesn't have a schedule. The first successes didn't take long to come. Valeria participated in solving several complex cases, demonstrating an extraordinary approach to analyzing evidence and working with witnesses. Her ability to establish trusting relationships with victims and their families became an important asset for the Bureau. The department leadership quickly noticed the potential of the young detective. Valeria began to be involved in more responsible tasks, entrusting her with key aspects of investigations. Her dedication to work and professionalism earned respect not only from colleagues but also from representatives of other law enforcement agencies. With each passing year, Valeria Vivanco's professional reputation grew stronger. Her dedication to work and impressive results did not go unnoticed. In 2020, she received her first significant award for successfully preventing a jewelry store robbery on July 21st. This operation became exemplary. Valeria not only prevented the crime but also managed to neutralize two dangerous criminals without casualties among the civilian population. Soon after, Valeria was sent on a diplomatic mission to Madrid. There, she demonstrated her skills in international cooperation, supporting the logistics of an important vote that became the basis for constitutional operations in Chile. This mission significantly expanded her professional experience and strengthened her position in law enforcement. By 2021, Valeria had already reached the rank of assistant inspector. This appointment was a recognition of her professional growth and abilities. At 25, she became one of the youngest employees to reach such a level in the Metropolitan Homicide Investigation Bureau. The night of June 13, 2021 began for Valeria Vivanco as a regular shift. At 4 o'clock in the morning, a special operation was conducted in the city of Santo Tomás de la Pintana to check all incoming and outgoing transport. The reason for these measures was the recent murder of a 20-year-old girl nearby. Valeria was part of a group that also included Deputy Commissioner Felipe Gallardo Araya, Assistant Inspector Maria Ura, and Detective Leonel Alejandro Contreras Canales. Their task was to identify and detain a suspect who, according to information, could be traveling in a Kia vehicle. When the suspicious car came into view, Felipe Araya skillfully blocked its path with a patrol car. Valeria and Leonel got out of the car with their weapons ready to use. Suddenly, a shot rang out and Valeria fell to the ground, having received a gunshot wound. Everything happened in front of many witnesses. Colleagues immediately rushed to help Valeria, providing first aid. She was urgently taken to Padre Hurtado Hospital, where doctors fought for her life. Despite all the efforts of the medical staff, Valeria died 2 hours later. This tragedy became a shock not only for Valeria's family and colleagues but for the entire Chilean society. The death of a young, promising police officer in the line of duty caused a wave of indignation and demands for justice. The news of Valeria Vivanco's death quickly spread throughout Chile, causing shock and outrage in society. The media immediately picked up this story, interrupting regular broadcasts for emergency reports. The street where the tragedy occurred quickly filled with journalists, police officers, and concerned citizens. The National Chief of Police for Combating Theft and Crime Hotspots, Jorge Sanchez, made an official statement on television. He reported that Vivanco was shot by criminals trying to escape from the crime scene. Sanchez also announced the successful detention of two suspects, 19-year-old Miguel Calabrano and his 17-year-old accomplice, whose name was not disclosed due to being a minor. Chilean President Sebastián Piñera also made a statement, expressing deep sorrow over the death of the young police officer. He called Valeria a brave girl who was doing her duty and promised that the authorities would do everything possible to establish justice. The public reacted with mass demonstrations and demands to enhance the safety of police officers. Social networks were flooded with messages of condolence and calls for severe punishment of the guilty. The farewell ceremony for Valeria Vivanco took place in the department where she worked. The event gathered hundreds of people, relatives, colleagues, friends, and ordinary citizens who came to pay their respects to the deceased. The farewell ceremony was held with all the honors due to a police officer who died in the line of duty. Valeria's colleagues, including Leonel Canales, carried her coffin from the office to the hearse and then to the cemetery. The procession moved through the city streets, where people applauded, paying their last respects to the heroine. High-ranking officials were present at the ceremony: Interior Minister Rodrigo Delgado, his deputy Juan Francisco Gali, head of the Homicide Investigation Department Hector Espinoza, and the country's president. A 3-day mourning period was declared in the department where Vivanco worked and in the academy where she studied. Hector Espinoza presented Valeria's parents with the Chilean flag, which they later hung at home next to a photograph of their deceased daughter. Speeches by colleagues and leadership emphasized Valeria's professionalism and dedication to her work. This farewell became not only a personal tragedy for the Vivanco family but also a symbol of national loss, which further emphasized the importance of investigating the circumstances of her death. Immediately after the tragedy, the official version of events was clear: Valeria Vivanco was shot by criminals during an escape attempt. The authorities quickly announced the detention of two suspects: 19-year-old Miguel Alejandro Calabrano and his 17-year-old accomplice, whose name was not disclosed due to being a minor. In June 2021, the first court hearing in the case took place. During it, Valeria's colleagues reported that on the night of the tragedy, they were conducting a covert operation, which is why Vivanco was not wearing a bulletproof vest and was traveling in a car without police logos. According to the prosecution's version, the suspects, trying to escape, intentionally opened fire on Vivanco. The court ordered both suspects to be taken into custody for 6 months, the estimated time for conducting the investigation. For the police at that moment, everything seemed obvious: the suspects were detained, the case could be considered almost closed. However, this version of events soon began to raise doubts. Relatives of the detainees stated that their children only confessed to accidentally hitting Vivanco with a car but did not shoot her. The mother of one of the suspects even filed a statement with the prosecutor's office, asserting her son's innocence and demanding the establishment of the truth. Despite the official version of events, Valeria Vivanco's family began to feel that something was wrong. Their suspicions intensified when they learned about some inconsistencies in the investigation. Valeria's sister, Daniela, in one of the interviews, stated that she had audio recordings from her sister's phone, which recorded that fatal operation. According to her, the recordings clearly heard Valeria's conversation only with Leonel Canales, which did not correspond to the official version of events. The Vivanco family, no longer trusting the official investigation, decided to conduct their own investigation. Valeria's older brother, Michelangelo, and sister Daniela began carefully studying the case materials, looking for new evidence. They even visited the city of Santo Tomas, where the tragedy occurred, trying to find surveillance cameras that could have recorded the real events of that night. The family's lawyer, Alfredo Morgado, drew attention to contradictions in witness testimonies and the strange behavior of some participants in the reconstruction of events. He emphasized that all detectives claimed they did not use weapons that night, although department head Sergio Munoz said the opposite. These discrepancies and inconsistencies only strengthened the determination of the Vivanco family to get to the truth, despite the official position of the authorities. In August 2021, the case took an unexpected turn. 3 investigators who participated in the investigation were suddenly fired due to possible involvement in the death of their colleague. On August 2nd, Valeria's parents were invited to the district prosecutor's office, where Inspector Juan Carlos Carrasco, on behalf of the police, offered them deep apologies. It turned out that their daughter died from a bullet from the gun of one of her colleagues. This news caused shock and outrage not only in the Vivanco family but in the entire society. Especially shocked was Juan Guillermo Vivanco, Miguel's son from his second marriage, who studied at the same academy as Valeria, inspired by her achievements. Suddenly it turned out that the department where he dreamed of working was involved in his sister's death. On August 4th, representatives of the Southern Prosecutor's Office released the results of an examination conducted by the Homicide Investigation Unit itself. It turned out that the bullet that killed Valeria Vivanco had a 9mm caliber, which is used in service weapons. This meant that the 3 detectives who accompanied Valeria that night could be involved in her death. During the investigation conducted by the prosecutor's office, serious violations and attempts to conceal evidence were revealed. It turned out that approximately 2 to 3 hours after Valeria's death, the police confirmed the detention of suspects. However, according to the prosecutor's office, both criminals surrendered themselves the next day, and only then was their detention officially registered. On July 29, 2021, the prosecutor received a report from the forensic laboratory, which had been kept in the Investigation Bureau for more than a month. It indicated the gun and bullet that killed Valeria Vivanco. The weapon belonged to her colleagues on the operation. It turned out that on June 17th, Bureau experts conducted a ballistic check of the 3 detectives who were with Valeria at the moment of the tragedy and the 2 detained teenagers. Chief expert Jose Garrotti indicated in the report that traces of gunpowder were found on Leonel Canales' hands. This information reached the leadership of the unit but somehow was not used in the investigation. In addition, the forensic service report contained incorrect data regarding the trajectory of the fatal bullet. According to the document, the bullet entered the girl's abdomen from the front, but the ballistic study conducted by the Investigation Bureau showed that the fatal shot was made to the back. Experts also found a bullet with particles of Vivanco's blood at the scene of the tragedy. These facts caused outrage from the prosecutor's office and raised questions about possible corruption and attempts to conceal the truth in police ranks. Leonel Alejandro Contreras Canales, a 21-year-old police officer who worked with Valeria Vivanco, unexpectedly found himself at the center of the investigation. Before the tragedy, he was considered a promising young employee who had joined the unit only a few months ago. Suspicions about Canales intensified after the examination revealed traces of gunpowder on his hands. Moreover, his position at the moment of the shot, according to eyewitness testimonies, coincided with the trajectory of the bullet that hit Valeria. In November 2021, Leonel Canales was arrested on a prosecutor's warrant and taken to a pretrial detention center. At the first control hearing, the prosecutor's office officially charged him with manslaughter and demanded pretrial detention. Canales denied his guilt. He claimed that the traces of gunpowder on his hands appeared when he tried to stop the bleeding, providing first aid to Valeria. He also insisted that after the operation, he returned his service pistol with the same number of cartridges as before it. The trial of Leonel Canales began in March 2023. The prosecutor's office was confident in his guilt and intended to seek imprisonment for at least 15 years. The Vivanco family supported this position. The prosecution presented various reports and examinations which, in their opinion, confirmed that it was Canales who fired the fatal shot. They emphasized the lack of rational motives for using a weapon in that situation. Canales' defense, led by lawyer Eva Guerrero, based their strategy on the claim that their client did not see who shot Valeria and even thought he was wounded himself. They insisted that Canales could not have fired the shot due to his position and the trajectory of the bullet that hit Valeria. Additionally, the defense put forward a version about the possible involvement of Felipe Araya, the driver of the patrol car, in the shooting. They claimed that Araya could have accidentally fired his pistol without leaving the driver's seat. The court carefully studied the arguments of both sides, as well as additional evidence presented by the Vivanco family as a result of their private investigation. In May 2023, violating the ban on communication with the press, Leonel Canales invited journalists to the pretrial detention center. This interview came as a surprise to all parties in the process. During the conversation, Canales publicly declared his innocence. He claimed that Valeria was killed by Felipe Araya with a shot to the back, which allowed the real criminals to escape. According to Canales, the subsequent investigation was conducted with numerous errors, which led to his unjust accusation. This interview caused mixed reactions. The prosecutor's office regarded it as an attempt to create additional hype around the case. The Vivanco family was outraged that Canales was allowed to speak publicly. The court reprimanded Canales for violating the ban on communication with journalists. Canales' statement about Felipe Araya's possible involvement in Valeria's death forced the investigation to once again check all versions of events. Canales' lawyers presented additional evidence in favor of this theory. They claimed that Araya, known among colleagues by the nickname Crazy Shooter due to his tendency to use weapons unreasonably, could have accidentally fired while behind the wheel of the patrol car. In their opinion, the identical nature of Canales and Araya's pistols could have led to confusion during the investigation. The defense also drew attention to the fact that Araya thoroughly washed his hands before the analysis for traces of gunpowder, and his testimony about the events of that night was contradictory and changed over time. However, the prosecutor's office considered this version weak. They insisted that all pistols of the operation participants were thoroughly checked, and the evidence pointed to Canales as the shooter. The Vivanco family, conducting their own investigation, found some evidence that could confirm the version about Araya's involvement. They provided the court with reports from the Carabineros, which, in their opinion, confirmed this theory. These new versions and evidence forced the court to order additional examinations and witness interrogations, which significantly delayed the process and complicated the establishment of the truth. The judicial process in the Valeria Vivanco case continued until November 2023. During this time, the court carefully examined all presented evidence, heard witnesses, and experts. On November 17, the court announced its decision. Leonel Canales was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. This decision was a compromise between the positions of the prosecution and the defense. The court took into account that Canales did not intend to kill his colleague, but his actions led to the tragic death of Valeria Vivanco. On November 29, 2023, the sentence was announced. Leonel Canales received 12 years in prison. The prosecution insisted on 15 years, while the defense asked for 10 years. The judge explained that in determining the sentence, 2 years that Canales spent in custody during the investigation were taken into account. In addition, Canales was prohibited from holding any public positions after release. The Valeria Vivanco case had a significant impact on the law enforcement system in Chile. It revealed serious problems with corruption and concealment of information in the police. As a result of the investigation, 16 employees of the Investigation Bureau were fired, including high-ranking officers. Among them was the director of the Homicide Investigation Department, Jorge Marquez, who was accused of administrative violations. This case led to a review of internal investigation procedures in the police. New protocols were implemented to ensure greater transparency and accountability during investigations of incidents involving police officers. In addition, control over the use of service weapons was strengthened, and mandatory wearing of body cameras was introduced for employees participating in special operations. This tragedy also forced a review of the training system for young police officers, placing greater emphasis on ethical aspects of work and the importance of following the law even in difficult situations. The tragic death of Valeria Vivanco did not remain just a sad page in the history of the Chilean police. Her short but bright life became a symbol of dedication to duty and professionalism for many young officers. A square in the city was named in honor of Valeria. Every year on the day of her death, a commemoration ceremony is held there, during which people bring flowers and light candles. This tradition has become not only a tribute to Valeria's memory but also a reminder of the importance and danger of law enforcement work. A memorial plaque with her portrait was installed at the police academy where Valeria studied. The story of her life and service became part of the training course for future officers, as an example of professional ethics and selflessness. The Vivanco family, despite the pain of loss, actively participated in preserving Valeria's memory. They established a charitable foundation in her name, which provides support to families of police officers who died in the line of duty. Despite the completion of the trial and the sentencing, Valeria Vivanco's family did not feel that justice had been fully restored. They remained dissatisfied with the verdict, considering it too lenient for the severity of the crime. Valeria's parents publicly expressed their disappointment that Leonel Canales, by their calculations, could be released in just 9 to 10 years thanks to the early release system. They considered this unfair, given that their daughter lost her life. The Vivanco family did not stop their private investigation. They continued to search for new evidence that could shed light on some still unclear aspects of the case. In particular, they were interested in the motives for the crime and the possible involvement of other persons in concealing evidence. The family's lawyer announced their intention to appeal the verdict, insisting on a more severe punishment for Canales and continuing the investigation into the possible involvement of other officers in the tragedy. This tireless struggle of the Vivanco family to establish the full truth became a symbol of how personal tragedy can turn into a fight for systemic changes in law enforcement and society as a whole. The Valeria Vivanco case became a catalyst for significant changes in Chilean society, especially in the context of perception of law enforcement work and trust in them. First of all, this tragedy sparked a wide discussion about police transparency and accountability. The public demanded greater access to information about internal investigations and clearer mechanisms for controlling law enforcement activities. In response to these demands, the Chilean government initiated a series of reforms. An independent commission was created to oversee police activities, which included representatives of the public and human rights experts. This commission was given the authority to conduct its own investigations in cases of abuse by police officers. In addition, psychological support programs for law enforcement officers were strengthened. This decision was made taking into account the stressful nature of their work and the need to prevent emotional burnout, which can lead to mistakes and misconduct. The changes also affected the education system. Special lessons were introduced in schools dedicated to the role of police in society and the importance of mutual respect between citizens and law enforcement officers. The media also changed their approach to covering such incidents. Journalists began to pay more attention to investigating facts and avoiding sensationalism when covering events related to police work. Overall, the tragedy of Valeria Vivanco became a turning point in the relationship between society and law enforcement in Chile, encouraging greater openness, dialogue, and mutual responsibility. In a small square in Santiago, named after Valeria Vivanco, it's always quiet. Only the rustle of leaves and the muffled steps of passers-by disturb the peace of this place. In the center of the square stands a modest monument, a bronze figure of a young woman in police uniform, looking into the distance, as if guarding the peace of the city even after death. Every day, people come to the monument: police colleagues, academy students, ordinary citizens. They bring flowers, light candles, some just stand silently, paying tribute to Valeria's memory. This square has become not only a place of memory but also a symbol of the changes that have taken place in Chilean society after the tragedy. It reminds of the price of serving the law and the importance of justice. The story of Valeria Vivanco continues to live in people's hearts, inspiring new generations to honesty, courage, and dedication to their cause. Her short life left a deep mark, changing not only the law enforcement system but also the consciousness of an entire society. On the plaque near the monument are engraved words that best describe Valeria's life path. She lived to serve and died protecting others. These words have become not just an epitaph, but a call to all who dedicate their lives to serving society.